Hello, welcome. You made it and we appreciate it. Welcome today. It is Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. We're so happy you are here. Thank you for joining us for Working Better with LGBTQ plus youth. My name is Renee Angela Mock. I'll go into a little bit later about who I am, but we are so happy you're here and that you are with us today. A little bit about where we're coming from, Mentor Maryland, DC, and some of my colleagues are on the call as well. So you heard Dan McLaren Johnson's voice, he is waving, and Andrew Lolavar, he is one of our Vistas. So yeah, Mentor Maryland DC, we are an affiliate of the National Mentoring Partnership, and Mentor Maryland DC launched in Maryland in 2018, and we officially expanded into DC in 2021, and we are here across the state in DC to uplift the urgency towards quality mentoring. So we are here for you to help increase the quality and quantity of mentoring relationships across, in conjunction with the other affiliates across the United States to close the mentoring gap and increase the number of relationships. But we are here to help you, our programs, anybody who is in contact with young people and has impact and influence over relationships, to help you do that in an evidence-based and safe and wonderful way. So we're here to help you do that and to do your best work and make sure you have everything to do that. So we do that in a number of ways, and this is with some of that. So, excuse me. Again, our relationship with the National Mentoring Partnership, which is actually why we're going to be in Rhode Island next week. We have our internal conference at Mentor Rhode Island, which is one of the affiliates. So we have our Mentor Con, where all of our affiliates, of which there's about 25 of us, we're going to be coming to Providence, Rhode Island for our first in-person Mentor Con in 3 years. So I've never been to Rhode Island. I'm very excited. So we're going to be in Providence on Monday for a few days. So that's really exciting for us. We have our no-cost technical assistance through the National Mentor Resource Center. I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the presentation as well, but this is an opportunity for you to be connected with us and some of our amazing expert consultants to provide up to 30 or 50 hours of one-on-one consulting and about what your program needs when it comes to anything, from recruitment to program planning and NQMS, the National Quality Mentoring System, and whatever your program may need at whatever stage your program is in. So that's something that some people on this call, I believe, have experienced and something that we can talk about too before you apply. So that's an option for you. The Mentoring Connector, which is the only national database of mentoring programs where mentors can look for you guys, can look for programs to volunteer at, and for families can look for programs for the young people. So if you're not already in the Mentoring Connector, we'll send this deck out. All of these are clickable links, so make sure you get that. But if you're not already in the Mentoring Connector, get on in there. We host things like this, trainings and roundtables and communities of practice. So we want to be engaged with you, which is why we are regularly doing things like this, and we'll keep doing this. Promotion of best practices, the elements of effective practice. Today, we're talking about one of the supplements. So we'll be talking a lot about that today. I mentioned NQMS, that's the National Quality Mentoring System. This is an evidence-based process that programs are encouraged to go through every few years through our technical assistance. It is a questions-based kind of process that you go through to kind of an audit with one of our consultants to evaluate your program and make an improvement plan to improve your program and ensure that you you get kind of a quality badge of honor about how great you are and that you are keeping to certain standards and the like. Connecting to funding opportunities, we had a grant writing training a month or so ago. I was out for 4 weeks, so time is not real. But a few weeks ago, that was great, and we'll be doing bringing Starsha back to do another. And we want to ensure that, again, that you have everything you need, and we really mean that. And we know that that also means money. So we want to ensure that that those barriers are low and you have truly everything that you need. And again, mentoring.org, that is the website of the National Mentoring Partnership, and there are tons of resources there. So that is a website that you should use, and when you are looking for anything related to mentoring, go there and use their search bar for sure. So this is something that we don't review often in these kinds of presentations, but this is from our strategic plan and something that I want to talk about more when we are coming together with you programs. So these are our 3 strategic priorities here at Mentor Maryland DC. We released our strategic plan last summer, and some of you were on those strategic plan release forums, but these are our strategic priorities, and these are things we want to do for you and with you. So these our strategic priorities are systems level advocacy. So at that systems level, getting our politicians and the people in our communities who have influence involved in advocating for mentoring and making that as easy as possible for our young people to access. So where our young people are, ensuring that there are caring adults all around them and that is as easy as possible. Because we know the research says that when young people have caring adults near them and caring about them, that their outcomes are better. Expanding mentoring programs. And again, it kind of goes back to what I keep saying is that when you guys have all that you need, that we know that there will be more mentoring programs. And when there are, that more youth will be absorbed into those programs and again, have those caring adults. So that's one of our strategic priorities for sure. And then again, shifting the narrative. So how we talk about youth, how we talk about who needs mentoring programs, which for us at Mentor Maryland DC, we think all youth, right? All youth need mentors, all youth need caring adults. And we want to talk about youth in a respectful and strengths-based way. And we want youth to be the owners of their stories and the one telling their stories. So for us, those are our strategic priorities, and we want you to be a part of them and to be aware of them and to help us champion them, because you are the ones on the front lines doing the work. And we want you to, we want to be working alongside you for these strategic priorities. So this is something that I want to be reminding you all of, that this is the work that we are working on through you and with you and alongside you. So I wanted to remind you of those, since we don't bring them up very often. And then this is me. I'm Renee Angela Mock, your facilitator today. So that's me, Renee Angela Mock. I'm a certified human resources professional. I'm your program outreach and support manager for the Greater Maryland region here at Mentor Maryland DC. Dan, who's on the call, covers the DC Metro market, and Andrew is the Vista for the DC Metro market as well. I've been working youth development for over 15 years, if you can believe it. I can, because I'm tired. So I know that that is true and my truth. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I was in Malawi from 2011 to 2013. I'm also an AmeriCorps alum. I was in Baltimore from 2013 to 14, working with systems involved youth. I'm an alum of St. Mary's College of Maryland, and so is Demera, 2015, which is unbelievable. So I bring that up because it's actually alumni weekend, and I'm heading there tomorrow. So go Seahawks. And oh, yeah, Demera, staying in WC, send me a private message. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna meet Demera this weekend. And my pronouns are she, they. So I'm looking forward to facilitating this for you today. This is a topic that is important to me, and I'm glad to bring it to you all today, at this time of year. And bring that to say, I just want to have some grounding for, why we're here and talking about this topic today. And first, I want to do a poll that we're going to kind of do whenever we come together about, who is here today, and then we'll kind of talk about why we're here. So I'm going to launch a quick Zoom poll, who is here? Who are you? Are you a program leader, a program staff, a mentor? Are there any youth on this call? Are there any matches on this call? Is there a mentor-mentee match on this call? Oh, wait. This did not actually launch. Now I launched it. A poll should have launched. Who is here today? Are you a program leader, a staff member, a mentor? Are you a young person, a match, etc.? So we're about half participated. Let's give a minute or so, see if we can get full participation there. This will help ground our conversation today and help me answer your questions as well. So I'll give just a few more seconds. All right. Cool. We have 10 more seconds for those just coming in. Hopefully there's a poll on your screen. Who's here? You're a program leader, program staff, mentor, mentee. And again, these roles, as we kind of move forward in youth-centered programming, et cetera, ideally, all these people have influence in how programs are shaped, but we know that that's not always the case, which is why I like to ask about who's on the call. All right. So it looks like we have a lot of program staff, which is who we expect, or who I typically expect on this call. A lot of program leaders as well, which is great. And I always hope that our program leaders are listening to their program staff and everybody else. Mentors, which I do love to see, that mentors who take on extra learning. And I also always encourage program staff to, it's best practice, of course, for mentors to get supplemental training, et cetera. So to give your mentors credit for attending things like this is always great, bonus points. I wish I could give you actual presents and gifts and things like that for bonus points, but it's a great practice to do that. So mentors, thank you for being on this call. Seems like I might have a young person on the call. Welcome. Please make your voice heard. So yes, welcome and thank you for being here. So, and for the chat, and please feel free to raise your hand and come off mute as well. I want to give a few minutes as well to see what brought you here today. Did something specific bring you here? Did someone tell you to be here, which is another valid reason for being here? Or are there LGBT youth in your program? Does something move you to be here today? Is there a specific concern that brought you here? Or did you literally just need something to do today? It's the middle of the week, the middle of the day in the middle of the week, something to get you through. But what brought you here today? And I'll say what moved me to, in full transparency, to schedule this training. One, middle of the year, we had to plan the rest of the training calendar, had to get something done. What were we going to do? I've said before, this topic is important to me. It's a time of year. Pride Month, happy Pride Month. And we hadn't done something like this yet, so I was excited to do it. She says, concerns about our youth and the summer is a challenging time. Great point, right? We're taking youth, they've been in school where ideally they have a certain support system, that suddenly that support system, they're not seeing them every day. Great point. Lisa, we work with LGBT college students, and because college students at college have let me know about the training and decided to join. Great, welcome. I'm glad that people are talking about it and telling other people about it. I love that. LGBTQ students in your class to gain information and resources. Someone loves our trainings. I'll hear that. Youth in our program, best. Great. Wonderful. Cool. I'll be working with LGBTQ students in a new capacity and want to learn more. Our program matches LGBTQ youth students. Great. Awesome. Good. Wonderful. One, I think it's great, and I'll kind of address this later, that you're already seeing these youth in your program, right? Because if you weren't, it might be a problem. It might be that your program wasn't a welcoming enough space for them to show up. So that you're seeing them there, that's already a good sign that your program is feeling inclusive and welcoming enough that they are there and they're showing up, because you know that these kids exist and that they are a part of our communities. Peter says to gain greater insight. He's definitely positive messages to culture is toxic, defining different forms. Yes, great, Peter. Happy Pride, Michael Stratton. Michael, you were like 2 minutes late, and I was like, is Michael Stratton going to show up?
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, so glad you're here.
Hello, everyone.
Yay. Yes, thank you all for coming. Very glad you're here, and I hope that you're able to take something from the session today. I'll say that this is going to be an information heavy session, and if you got our newsletter, you probably saw a tease that this is going to be kind of a part one to a working session later this month they'll go into. So I want to keep this session, I want to keep the chat lively, please. I'm going to include you in reading our slides and things like that, but this will be information and resource heavy for you to take back and for us to do this work at a later time. But I hope we're ready to do that absorbing of information. And it seems like you are as well. So is that Kim? We have several mentees who are trans and non-binary who weren't when they first started mentoring. We are currently undergoing an effort to change our name to be more inclusive. That's such a great point. And we'll talk about that too, right? That we're working with young people, and young people in general, right? We're talking about a period of growth. Young people change. And when we're talking about identity and sexual orientation and growth, that in the point of a time in talking, we see a young person change and their identity may change over the course of the program. And if you make your program safe and a place where someone feels safe, then they may feel comfortable to have that space to come into their identity. So that's wonderful. Hope opportunity for our mentors, many of whom who are older. Yes, wonderful. Great. So glad you are here and that you are ready to learn. Okay, so this specific supplement. So actually now, Dayon or Andrew, I'm going to ask you to drop that link. Yeah, thank you, Mary Beth. Yes. Okay, so Andrew is dropping a link, and this is actually to a PDF full of links. So I'm going to refer to a lot of these links throughout the session. So you can just keep this open and click through as I refer to them. So I'm referring today to the LGBTQ supplement to the elements of effective practice for mentoring. So this supplement, which refers to the EEP, which I'll get back into in the next slide. So when Mentor National, so actually Big Brothers Big Sisters came to the National Mentoring Partnership to write this supplement because there's a recognizing of the failure to address mentoring for this population. And this was in 2019. So pretty late in the game to recognize that failure, unfortunately. That's really a shame, right? That's a failure, and I want to acknowledge that. And what we also understand in that failure is that there is a lot of risks for this population in general when we're not recognizing the needs of this population. And when we're not recognizing the needs of this population, when it comes to mentoring, there's a lot of potential for long-term harm. So I also want to acknowledge that in this supplement, they use while it's not in the title, throughout the supplement, they use the acronym LGBTQQ, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning. And they specifically use the double Q for questioning to acknowledge that for a lot of youth and youth experience, questioning is a really valid and common part of the youth experience. So I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that the acronyms that are used are different in a lot of different spaces, and I don't want this space to be critical. And you'll see throughout that the acronym that I use and that we use on our flyer and on the Zoom, and that might not be matchy. And I don't think this is a space to be, I'm not going to be super critical about this is the one to use, this is the one not to use, or this flag versus that flag. This isn't the point of this conversation, but that rather this is about the larger conversation about this population and these youth, and that we can have those conversations in another space, and I'd be happy to have those conversations with people, but rather we're keeping this youth focused and about our larger understanding of this population, what these words mean in the context of these young people and in the space of mentoring. But again, if that's another space of understanding you need, I'm happy to honestly schedule a meeting and talking about it. So a lot of wonderful people worked on this supplement, including Dr. Tori, who worked on Critical Mentoring, which is a book that I feel like I talk about in every training. And I keep saying that critical mentoring is the future. So Dr. Tori critical mentoring is about the intersection of race and the experience of young people with mentoring. So that is a book and a topic that we are continuing to talk about more and more. And the bios of everybody who worked on the supplement is in the supplement. So I encourage you to read about the amazing people who worked on the supplement. But like I said, the supplement was worked on in 2019. And while that was not that long ago, it kind of is almost already outdated in that way because so much has happened in the past few years. And even with things like acronyms, right? Like this acronym almost seems short now because of so much that has happened in the past few years. So if you look throughout the supplement, it talks about why the supplement is so important in the experience and specific concerns of young people in this community, right? So we're talking about stigma and bias and victimization and bullying and parent and family rejection, homelessness, the child welfare system, juvenile justice involvement, depression and suicide, risk-taking behaviors, the increased risk for transgender youth. Any of us who are maybe more familiar with those things for LGBTQ youth, we're aware of those things. But even those statistics that are in this supplement now are like, they're outdated because of what has happened in the past few years. For those who may have seen in the news, there was, and I believe it's linked in this document, and if it's not, I will ensure that I send it up in the follow-up email, but there was a report that came out that noted that in the first half of 2021, 1 in 4 LGBT teens attempted suicide in the first half of 2021. So there's a real mental health crisis for this population of young people. And it is because of all those things that I just said, right? We're talking about stigma, bias, bullying, rejection, homelessness. And these are things where another caring adult can make a big impact. But again, if that's not done right, that's that long-term harm, or that's that risk of potential harm that we're talking about, and why mentoring needs to be done so intentionally, and why this work requires commitment on behalf of programs and those trying to do the work. And it's the risk reward, and the reward can be very high when we're talking about being a protective factor for youth when the risk of suicidality is so high. Did anybody here go to the National Mentoring Summit in January? Raise your hand, drop a 1 in the chat. If you did or not, yeah, I see some raised hands. If you did or not, there was an amazing LGBT session that actually, I was trying to get them to come and do this session instead of little old me. And maybe we still will for later in the year, but they did this amazing session, and they were very frank in the fact that if you're working with this population of youth, you are doing suicide prevention work. And that's just the fact of the matter, because that's the real when we're talking about the risk factors for these youth. So what we know is that LGBTQ plus youth, they lack access to high quality mentoring. There's a lack of programs specifically for these youth. There's a lack of programs with affirming practices. There's a lack of knowledge on how to protect youth confidentiality, of which there are specific resources that I linked in that document. And there's a lack of knowledge on how to ensure youth safety. So there are, again, we're going to go over some of these practices today in the supplement, even more details in the supplement, of course, but these are things that I hope the people on this call that we're going to be committed to, because again, we're talking about safety, how to care for kids, and youth safety is really the number one thing if you're doing anything with youth that we need to be prioritizing, absolutely. And with certain populations, and of course, specifically this one, needs to be our first priority. Great. Wonderful. So, glossary and definitions. So, Andrew or Dan, can you drop that link again since some new people just came in? Welcome if anybody just came in. So in that document, I put together a glossary PDF that is sourced from multiple sources, including within the supplement. So, and I did that because 1, like I said, the supplement is a few years old. 2, I wanted to use multiple sources to kind of get to that point that, 1, these definitions and words are changing over time. And when we find in diversity and equity and inclusion work that these words do change over time and mean different things to different people, and et cetera, and that it's not always important or as important to know every single definition exactly word for word and have every definition memorized, et cetera, et cetera. And really it's about the understanding. And do you understand? Are you willing to learn, right? Are you willing to read through a definition? and read through and hear people out and let people tell you what their definition is and things like that. So I made a many page glossary for you to read on your own time. And again, like, this is not a space where we're going to read through and define every word, because it's kind of almost not exactly pertinent. And that's honestly the work that is for you and your staff and mentors to do on their own time. It's that kind of internal work and programmatic work for you to gain that understanding to do the work out in the field. And I hope that doesn't sound or seem harsh in a way. It's why I wanted to provide the resource for you from organizations that I trust, from my experience facilitating things like this and from doing my own learning. But that, again, there is a self-learning process of this and a commitment to do that learning. So I wanted to provide the resource. I wanted to, again, not get stuck on things like definitions, et cetera, because it is something that we could talk about for 2 to 6 hours if we really wanted to. But again, this is a resource for you. You can read and read and read through. And again, if it is something that you want to talk through, it's something, of course, we can schedule a meeting about, but that resource is there for you. Are there any questions or uncertainties or something that you absolutely do want to talk through before we move through to get into the supplement? Drop in the chat, come off mute. Thumbs up, we all good? All right. Oh, there we go, nice, great. Okay, cool. So to come back to the actual supplement. So again, we're talking about the supplement to the Elements of Effective Practice, the 4th edition. So to remind, the supplement is based on these 6 standards, right? Recruitment, screening, training, matching, monitoring, and support, and closure as it relates to mentors. So these are the 6 standards. Each of the standards has benchmarks, and then some of the standards have enhancements. So we'll go through each of the 6 standards and their benchmarks, and then we'll go through each of those enhancements. And again, so today we'll be talking specifically about, again, as this work relates to you and your mentors. And then as I talk about in that later deep dive session that I referred to earlier, more of that programmatic and what you and your program can do. But today I want to talk about as it relates to mentors, because again, that is kind of a place to start and kind of the quickest way to reduce harm in a way, because your mentors are kind of your biggest unknown factor, right? Like, these are the people that you're bringing in and the people where you can put up that no, stop, or that screen or that slow down, or like, now we're going to train, or let's put up some stoppers and some different kinds of thing for matching, and you're doing that monitoring and supervision, et cetera. So that's kind of why we're going to start with the standards and things today, rather than jump into the programmatic things, which we'll do in that later session. So we're going to go through this today. Again, the link, or Andrew dropped the supplement in the chat, which, I mean, it's like 80 pages. I don't expect you to necessarily follow along, but we have the benchmarks on each slide, and I'll be asking someone to read. So we are going to jump right into recruitment. Can I have someone read this slide for me? So this is our first standard, recruitment. Would someone like to come off mute and read this for me?
I'll read it for you. My name is Santana Velasquez, just for those of you who don't know me on the chat.
Oh yeah, that's great. Please introduce yourself, where you're from, read the slide. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm working with Hood College Admissions. So I'm working with college-age LGBTQ youth. And then, so this slide on recruitment, the first bullet point is mentor recruitment. Position description includes abilities associated with allyship, volunteer outreach to LGBTQ community groups/adults, inclusive and welcome language on website, brochures, etc. And then for mentee recruitment, emphasize that program values the participation of LGBTQ young people, reaches out to organizations that may be already serving LGBTQ youth, and then inclusive and welcome language on website, brochures, etc.
Thank you and welcome. So remember that the general, I'm going to say that the general EEP, the EEP, Elements Right Perspective, offers that guidance on how to message towards your program's value and services. And that this is about messaging that affirms and welcomes LGBTQ participants, mentors, and allies. And remember, allies are an important part as well, because we want those people in our programs as well. That's really important. And the other thing to think about here is that we have an ethical and a professional responsibility to ensure that our staff are trained to ensure that our staff are trained in and are able to provide our program services in a way that is safe for LGBT students and mentors. And we want to ensure that before we are doing this outreach that is specifically targeting LGBT students and mentors. That internal work is really important before we're thinking about specifically targeted recruitment. We also, we're thinking about this specific kind of messaging. This inclusive messaging dispels concerns for potential LGBTQ mentors. And the other thing to think about when we're thinking about this recruitment kind of piece, I know I used to be in mentor recruitment. Please know that I'm on your side, and I've had the experience. I was a mentor coordinator and a volunteer recruiter for many years. From that side, I hope you know that I feel you. Consider this is expanding your pool, right, of potential mentors. So if you're doing that work from within your organization, this is expanding your pool of who you can bring in and be a part of your crew and your mentoring. So that inclusive messaging dispels concerns for LGBT mentors that they will be included and be safe. And the other thing to remember, especially in the climate that we are in, which I hope that everyone on this call is aware of, that the reality is there are many spaces in this world where it is still not safe for LGBTQ people to be people, legally or otherwise. So if you are able to make your program a space where it is safe for someone, for an LGBTQ mentor to be safe, to be themselves, that is a gift. Like, that is a wonderful thing and a great thing for your program to be able to offer someone. So if you're able to do that, like, don't make it virtual signaling, don't make it virtue signaling, like, make it mean something, make it actually be true for someone. And that's something that you can offer in a world that's not always safe for people. So if you're able to do that, like, that's a wonderful thing that you can do. For youth, when we're talking about mentee recruitment and getting youth to your program, and like I mentioned earlier, it seems like you're seeing these youth in your program, which is great. Because youth, we know that youth can see the truth and are making judgments and knowing how adults really feel about them, whether we are saying it or not, right? So they may be in earlier kind of pre-phases of exploring their identity anyway. So these inclusive messages are important cues for them to be able to, for them to decide whether this is going to be a safe space for them to explore their identity or not. They're going to make a decision about whether they want to join this program or not by that messaging. They're going to have that sense or not, and they're going to make that decision. So, and they will either join your program or not. So if you're not seeing these youth in your program, that may be a reason not. They may be getting some kind of messaging that is sending them somewhere else. And we also want to think about, for programs that serve younger youth, think about that as well, because we may have this idea, especially when it comes to sexual orientation, gender identity, that these are ideas that, not ideas, that this is something that youth don't know about themselves until they're much older. And that's not the case. These are things that young people typically know about themselves when they're very young. And that for individuals who don't disclose those things or feel comfortable to express those things until they're older, it's typically because they did not have safe enough spaces to explore those areas of their identities until they were older. So if you can be a safe enough space for younger children, elementary age, whatever, then again, if it can be a safe space for them to explore their identity, then they can come to terms with their identity, not come to terms, explore their identity, share their identity, disclose, etc., at a younger age. So don't presume because that you have an elementary age program that this is not something that your program needs to do or work that your program needs to do. That's just not the case. So that's something that, again, programs of all ages, this is work that, again, that all of us need to do and consider and to take on. And I hope that makes sense. And another thing to think about, excuse me. Again, I want us to think about allies as well, that they are, so if I am an ally and I'm coming to your program and I'm not seeing this inclusivity, that could be a turnoff to me as well. I'm not seeing that my LGBTQ friend would be welcome here, so why would I want to come? That's something you might be closing off more people than just this one community that you might be closing off their friend, their network, etc. So we're not just talking about one community, we're talking about this whole larger network of this. We're thinking about this one LGBTQ youth, but then we're thinking about their friend, their parent, their network, their neighborhood, etc. So we're thinking about, this is more than just targeted outreach, but it's this whole kind of spider web of who's around this one person or this one child that we could be outreaching to, that potentially we're closing off because we're not having this inclusive, this affirming language, this affirming space for this young person. Any other questions about recruitment for mentors or young people? Cool. All right. Screening, if someone could come off mute, introduce themselves, and read screening for me.
I can do it. Hi, my name is Maribeth Stotler-Watkins. I'm the program director at the Youth Development Center in Winchester, Virginia. Didn't know this was for Maryland when I signed up, but I'm glad I'm here. Love Maryland. So the screening, mentor screening, the criteria for it excludes homophobia, biphobia, or transphobia. Interview includes scenario examples to assess compatibility working with LGBTQ+ youth. For the mentee screening, if behavior is severe enough, program may allow non-acceptance for youth exhibiting homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia.
Great. So if you're not aware, this is the gay, bi, and trans flag at the bottom here. For mentors, this is just a straight hard line here, right? Mentors who are homophobic, biphobic, transphobic in any way is incompatible with your program's inclusive vision if you're taking on this inclusive vision, full stop. It's just that. A study found that 56% of students heard teachers and school staff making homophobic remarks in the past year. We know that they're hearing more of that on the news, from Congress, like they're hearing that more and more and more. And we know what damage that is doing to our young people. It's the opposite of affirming. Unaffirming, it is doing damage. This is just a hard line that we have to draw when it comes to mentors, full stop. And that means when we're talking about screening, which we know from the EEP needs to include interviews and reference checks, of course, but typically in this case, the best way to do this would be to include interviews. And the best kind of way to do that would be to do scenarios, of which, of course, I hope that your interviews would include scenarios. I also want to be clear that, and I said this earlier, anyone who's coming on this training, I'm not making any judgments about what in any of these processes at your program, if you have any of these processes or not. I'm not making any judgments about what you do or do not have, because you're here and I'm happy that you're here. So ideally your program, if you are interviewing your mentors, but they have some kind of scenario, right? What are you going to do if little Johnny refuses to participate in an activity? A classic interview question. So a scenario, right? What are you going to do if with this youth? So for this, if we're trying to screen out homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, we're including a scenario about an LGBTQ youth, of course, right? The supplement has a great list of questions listed out, but this is kind of a must. We want to hear it straight from them about what they're going to do when they're faced with this kind of scenario. What are you going to do if a youth comes out to you? What are you going to do if you hear a bigoted comment from your youth, right? Or maybe in addition, asking kind of that question in a reference check, etc. And again, with adults, with our mentors, this is where we have to draw an absolute hard line, because it's just not going to be a part of an inclusive vision. And for you, and again, with adults, you likely do not have the time to be rehabilitating adults' point of views and visions and etc. when it comes to how to be young people. You're already doing other training for adults who are open to working with LGBTQ youth. When we get to the training section, when we get to that slide, you already have your work cut out for you. I know that you do. So for mentor screening, just hard pass. If we are finding that there is a mentor that is expressing homophobic, biphobic, transphobic ideas. For mentees, this is where it gets a bit more complicated, because research says that this kind of behavior and ideas is declining in young people. Homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and non-acceptance in general is declining in young people, which is great. Some of the language is kind of built in some slang, which is kind of like not great, but there are young people, of course, who harbor these kind of negative beliefs towards the LGBTQ community. So this is where there's potential opportunity. A mentor could be a credible messenger to disrupt and possibly change this behavior, which would be great. So this is where a program would need to be, again, have done that work and be very prepared to have done your own scenarios about what are you going to do if you have a youth who is exhibiting some of this behavior. How are you going to deal with it? How are you going to keep your LGBTQ youth safe if there's a youth who is using some kind of language, a youth who is not understanding, a youth who is not respectful of someone's pronouns, et cetera, et cetera. And there does have to be a line where you do have to draw a line where at some point your LGBTQ youth safety has to be prioritized over a single youth being in your program. And I have to say that is not, I do not envy that decision having to be made. And ideally, of course, we want to work with every youth until the end and support them. And that's very tough. And I'll say that I've had experiences working with youth who use language I don't appreciate, et cetera, et cetera. It's very hard work to do. And now that we're talking about this, has anybody had experiences that they'd like to share? And we can keep this, we're recording. I can pause if you'd like to share a story, but this is a hard line. But this is why I'm saying when we're talking about having these kinds of things written out and prepared for, we can decide what the line is. And when we've made that commitment to have this be our inclusive vision, that we know where the line is, that we're prioritizing safety, and that we are also able to communicate that to our youth, right? So if a youth is coming out and they're using certain language, we're saying, hey, when you use this language, it's not, you make this space not safe, and that's not fair. And when you make the space not safe, you can't be here. That's how I talk to youth too, when certain behaviors, I was like, when things aren't safe, you have to go home, or you can't be here. Any thoughts or anybody want to share? That's tough. I mean, I hate saying it, but it's the truth. It's tough. Or Dan, any thoughts?
I think you mentioned something really critical. It's a very difficult space, Renee, but to make our program safe, it has to happen. And setting that priority is paramount for us as program staff and program leaders.
Yeah.
I have some input. So I was actually in my mentor group through Mentor VA, and we were talking about ways that we can be inclusive in like any capacity that we can, including like our intake forms and stuff like that. And somebody had brought up that it might make people uncomfortable when you offer they them options, or if you let somebody like a parent has to mark that their child is a part of the LGBTQ plus community if they might not accept it. And that it sort of makes people uncomfortable, but ultimately it's about educating and learning. And if it makes them feel uncomfortable, then I hope it's a learning experience for them. As far as like our screening goes, if we have somebody who's just blatantly not a part of our same mission, then we just want to use that as a learning opportunity. And sometimes it's a little painful and embarrassing, but hopefully when we turn somebody away, they can turn to themselves and reflect on like why, and maybe make that change. So I think that while it can be hard sometimes to educate and to advocate, it's ultimately about the learning experiences and opportunities.
Totally. Yes, it is tough. And I mean, youth work is tough already, and I love and respect everybody on this call for doing that work. And yes, this work is about learning, and for youth and families and for mentors who may get turned away, what I've seen is that, and it may take years, is that when things go well, the learning eventually happens, ideally. And it takes a lot of patience to wait. And if you're lucky, you may get to see it, and you may not. But again, when we're prioritizing safety, and I want to bring this back, when we're talking about a population who is at higher risk of violence against them, at higher risk of suicidality, et cetera, we're talking about, long-term risk of potential harm, and that's to be taken seriously. And in that same way, we wouldn't and shouldn't tolerate, in that same way, if there's a mentor coming in that was super racist, we'd be like, no. If there was a mentee, being super racist, we would shut it down as well, as we should. So we need to hold firm and turn these opportunities into learning opportunities if and when we can, and hold to our vision. So yeah, we're going to do it. We're doing it. Which takes us to our next thing, training. And this is a bulky one. So can someone come up mute, introduce themselves, and please read for me?
Hi, I'm Kat. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in DC, and I can read this slide. Training. Mentors are trained, ideally pre-matched, but at least early on key information on LGBTQ experiences, such as definitions, demographics, risk factors, intersectionality, sex and identity, resiliency and protective factors, trauma-informed mentoring. Mentors are trained, ideally pre-matched, but at least early on these skills to better serve LGBTQ youth. Strengths-based approach, possible relationship barriers, unconscious bias, how to handle coming out and disclosures, confidentiality, how to avoid counter-transference, responding non-judgmentally, practicing empathy, using respectful language, boundary setting. Enhancement training utilizes role-playing scenarios.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your pronouns as well. Yes, training, the bread and butter of the pre-match experience for mentors. So we all know, anyone who's trained mentors, is that pre-match training is essential for building mentor confidence and efficacy, because a lot of mentors come in and they are excited to do it, but they just they need that confidence boost, and training can really do that for a lot of mentors. And then when we're talking about specialized training for this group, I mean, there's a lot of things listed on this slide and in this chapter of the supplement that is very specialized information. And this is the specialized information that unfortunately, we don't have time to go over today. These are the definitions that I'm talking about that we don't have time to go over today, but that you would want to spend time going over with your mentor, because these are the questions that they're going to have and that they need to know and feel prepared for. So, and again, this is also part of that thing when we're talking about a group that is at risk for harm. It's one of those things that we want to have that understanding without now only have that be our only lens about how we view them, which is how for mentors who we're giving this information to, we want to give them that information, but then not set them up that that's now their only lens. So from the program standpoint, we, because of our experience, we're able to have that wider view because we're in the work for a longer period of time. We're in the work, so we're going towards those more positive outcomes. Before a mentor, once they get this dump of information, they may be more, they can tend to be more siloed, to be like, oh my gosh, oh no, look at all these terrible things that are happening to this group of people. And only I can do this one thing. Or but really, it's not just about risk prevention. It's about the potential for the good, right? The potential of a mentor, what we call protective factor, about all the good that a mentor can bring. But they're only one person in that, right? We're talking about the mentor also being collaborative with you, the program, a mentor being collaborative with a parent and training on how to work with a parent who's being supportive, but maybe also with a parent who's not being supportive, and how to do that and how to navigate that. That is a lot to learn and how to do. And you, the program, as always, have more experience in doing that. And again, when we get to our other session, when we're talking about, ideally, you guys are the ones who learn these things first, and then we are transferring this knowledge to our mentors. And again, a lot, as you see in the language here, which is ripped from the supplement, we're saying ideally, they're getting some of this information pre-matched. And of course, the enhancement is always that in the original EEP is that there's always supplemental training. And these are things that we can always should be revisiting with mentors. Ideally, they're getting some information pre-match. And they do. They need some pre-match information, and they need continued access to this information. And we're talking about specialized information. I keep saying LGBTQ, but we know that within these groups, within the L, within the G, within the B, within the T, within the Q, there's specialized information with all these subgroups. And I don't mean, and I hope that it's clear that I'm not meaning to lump this as literally one group, because we're talking about many groups here. About, there's different experiences for each group here, especially for transgender youth specifically, of course, and different between the coming out process, the disclosure process, et cetera, safety concerns, going on and on. What is wonderful about this wonderful supplement, which is also full of clickable links, is that there are great digestible resources for how to get this information to groups like this and to your own group as well. So definitely do some clicking through to get that. And there are also some activities as well for mentors and mentees, mentors to do by themselves to kind of get an understanding about what the experience is like for young people who are part of this community, and for mentors and mentees to do together as they are matched. Thanks, Kim. So yes, this is a really meaty part of the supplement. It is asking a lot. mentor training is important. I will say that, spoiler alert, we're going to do a trauma-informed mentoring training in July, so please come. I will be facilitating. So I hope you like me, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So again, like these kinds of things, well, invite your mentors. I mean, it'll be recorded as well, but invite them. But these are the kinds of things that, again, you want to build them in and make them digestible and recordable, or make the work as easy as possible for you, because you're going to want to have these resources available ongoing for your mentors. That enhancement about utilizing role-playing scenarios cannot express how useful and wonderful those are. I went to a Nicola, click through the supplement, because there's the very, very specific ones are in there. Stacy, yes, I believe that. As far as role-playing scenarios, I was in a community conferencing training, like restorative justice training, where we were acting out community conference, and this was like long form role-playing. And it was, I mean, that's a big ask, but what we got out of it was the real experience of what that situation was really like. And if we really push people to really put themselves in the situation of that scenario, that really put people into that experience. So that is an enhancement, but I do feel that is really, really worthwhile. So want to put that on your radar. Okay, we are at 12 o'clock. All right, so we're about halfway through. Any specific questions so far about recruitment, screening, and training? Thoughts, reflections, concerns? Okay, cool. If I can have someone come off mute, introduce themselves, matching and initiation.
Hi, I'll read. I'm Patricia, and I'm in Montgomery County, and I work with girls after-school programs in the middle schools. And I am soon going to be starting a flag football team for girls, the LGBT girls that want to play flag football. So we're getting ready to start a league this summer for them throughout the middle schools and high schools. So I'll read. Matching criteria considered includes parent, guardian, youth, and mentor preference as it relates to sexual orientation, gender identity, expression. Matching considers the ability of the mentor to serve as an ally. Matching process includes an introductory meeting with parent, guardian, mentee, and mentor with ample time to assess fit before formally committing to relationships. Program host opportunity for mentors and mentees to get to know each other in a group format for a period of time before committing to one-on-one relationships.
Thank you. So for those who may supervise matching, etc., I know, and again, have the experience, that matching is difficult. It's an art, it's a science, and it's something that is already difficult, but it's something we want to get parental consent in, it's something we want to get buy-in from all parties in. So I don't envy you, and it's something that we already have. It's already kind of difficult to do. When we're thinking about something that this chapter or this area of the supplement brings up, it's that it's where relevant, right? This isn't, it must be that we're matching based on sexual orientation or gender identity and expression. It's where relevant and where purposeful How long was I muted? Was that just a second? Okay, I was like, oh, okay. It's where relevant, right? Where it is relevant to your program. So if it's relevant to your program, matches based on sexual orientation or gender identity can be critical for a youth who may be navigating coming out. If their mentor has had that experience, that could be very desirable for that young person to have someone who has had the lived experience, and maybe that could be like truly like invaluable for a mentor to be able to give that advice and have that shared experience, to be able to advocate for that young person. But again, that's one criteria of the many criteria that we consider when we match young people, right? Or what are we usually matching on? Shared interests, sense of humor, a mentor's skills that are in a use area of needs, something the youth wants to learn about. We also want to consider that an LGBTQ adult may still be navigating their own journey. For a lot of us adults, like when I was a young person, a lot of these things and words didn't exist. And that's why there is a lot of people my age, millennials, et cetera, who are coming to terms with their identities now, because the option did not the option, but there were no safe spaces to do so when we were younger. So there may be an LGBT or a mentor who's in that community, but is not yet prepared to serve as a mentor to a young person in that way. So that is something to note, and something for a staff member who is serving as the person that's setting up matches to be aware of and to take into consideration. So when we are talking about how we are taking this information from mentors and mentees, there's things like confidentiality, et cetera, and there is a document linked in the document of links that I gave you, that has some guidelines on how to collect that information, et cetera. But again, ideally we want all this information to be agreed upon by all parties, right? That the mentor says, I want a mentee that has this criteria. The mentee says they want the mentor to have this criteria. The parent says they want the mentor to have this criteria, and that everyone is in agreement on all those things, so that there is no misunderstandings and that everyone is on the same page, and that there is that all areas of consent. We're talking about allyship. We want to consider that a mentor as an ally can also be an advocate in that process as well. And that's why when we're thinking about this supplement, that we are also considering allies, and how when we're doing this work as well, we're not just welcoming in LGBTQ youth and mentors, but allies as well, and the power of allies as advocates and people to stand by this community and to serve as advocates. That's really, really important. And then another protective factor when we're thinking about protective factors. This introductory meeting, which again, in that initial EEP, this is a benchmark and an enhancement, that when we think about that introductory meeting with a parent, ideally, that when the mentor mentee meeting, that there is that time for everyone to get to know each other, and that we're assessing fit for as long as we kind of can before that there is that formal commitment. And this kind of idea for this group format before committing to a long-term one-on-one relationship, which is something that my program used to do a lot, these kind of group mixers before people committed. And it's okay. I think that programs want to get, we're trying to have matches by this date. We want to have 30 matches by the end of the year, et cetera, et cetera. That one-on-one is kind of numbers game. But again, we're talking about reducing harm. We don't want to have it. We'll talk about closure, but we don't want to have matches end early. When we're thinking about, ideally, we can have, of course, matches that close early and reduce harm as much as possible. But when we're talking about the risks of that for this population, we want to avoid that as much as possible. So when we do a kind of slow roll for making those matches, we can avoid that. So when we think about groups getting to know each other, mentors and mentees, this can be, a way to do that. And what we find as well is that for LGBTQ youth, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is that they're less likely to have natural mentors, or to gain natural mentors over the course of their life. And by natural mentors, we mean adults that show up over the course of their life that serve in an informal mentoring role. So this is kind of their opportunity, being in this program and being matched with an adult. It's going to take some, obviously this kind of implies that it may take a while for them to kind of warm up and build that relationship with an adult. So this kind of group format can give an opportunity for them to kind of find the right person for that one-on-one relationship. Any thoughts? Or has anybody kind of done that group to one-on-one format before? I love it. I'm a fan, but I mean, it works in all contexts, not even with specific populations, but. I'm gonna keep this moving so we stay on time. But yeah, definitely recommend that group to one-on-one, whether we're talking about specific populations or not. Okay, can I have someone come off mute to talk about monitoring and support?
I can do it. My name is Doan. I work with Joy's Resistance in Colorado. I use she, her pronouns. Monitoring and support. Match support literature includes referral information to LGBTQ resources. Program considers offering support groups / spaces for mentors working with LGBTQ youth. Programs consider offering discussion groups to mentors and youth on topics relevant to LGBTQ community. Program offers group activities for LGBTQ youth and opportunities for safe and supportive peer connections.
Great. So something from that original EEP is that kind of recommendation about a mentor handbook, and something that I recommend always, because mentors love resources and love walking away with something. And again, having something for them to refer back to as it refers to, again, that very specific information that you went over to through that very potentially bulky training that you went to. So kind of tips on that respectful language as it refers to sexual orientation or gender expression. A tip list on like how to address, a beta behavior or attitude from a mentee, how to handle coming out situations, or like, who do I go to if, who on staff do I go to if this happens, or, maybe some online resources that they can go to. That is appreciated, something simple you can put together for a mentor to hold on to. That can be when they need it, it'll be very meaningful for them. As far as kind of like a mentor kind of support group type space, that again, depending on maybe this is something that multiple programs can collab together, and that if you have mentors across programs but they had the shared experience. We had a mentor roundtable recently. Well, I find that when we bring mentors together and they get to talk about their experiences with their mentees, that cross program or even within the same program, that it is a very enjoyable experience for them, and that they had the shared experience no matter how different their mentees are. But when they have a shared experience of their mentees going through these same, not the same, but this shared experience of the shared kind of identity and the shared community, that can be really fruitful. So if you're able to offer that kind of space, or again, maybe potentially collaborating with other programs to bring mentors working with this community of youth together, that could be really fruitful. And if that's something that you want to put together, maybe need some assistance, again, please reach out, because that would be cool. Offering discussion groups to mentors and youth. So bringing, these matches together to discuss topics relevant to the community. Partnering with, these LGBT resources in your community centers, or advocacy centers and things like that. What's going on in the LGBT community in your community. And keeping in touch with what's going on in the community outside of your program can be really fruitful. And again, if your program isn't only serving LGBTQ youth, how is your how is your LGBTQ youth feeling connected with the other youth in your program, and how are they safely and feeling supported by those peer connections, by their other peers in the program. So things like, gay straight alliances, or again, there's other group activities listed in the supplement, but how are they making positive peer connections with the other youth in your programs? And again, that kind of safe environment that you're able to provide, and the group activities you're able to offer. Again, this enhancement, I think I wrote in my notes, taking political action. WTF is going on right now? The world is crazy, and it appears that we're talking about, engaging politically in community building initiatives. There is a lot of political threats right now to the LGBTQ community, and I referred to earlier that Congress is talking about and legislatively threatening this community, it seems, every single day. And I believe strongly that it's important that our youth are aware of this and how to take action and to defend themselves and advocate for themselves. And this is also something that mentors can teach young people about, right? And how to do that, and about the legislative process, and about that. So I think that is an important area. It's an enhancement here. And now I'm talking about me. I think that it's important, but as an enhancement, it is an opportunity to engage in leadership opportunities, to get engaged in your community, and to honestly, to defend themselves, and to be perfectly frank, advocate for their existence and for their value. And we know that they are valuable. So we're talking about incorporating them and as part of our vision and standing up for them. So I think it's an important, and it's more than an enhancement to bring that up. So I want to emphasize the importance of that and making that known to our young people when we are talking about their engagement in our programs and their awareness of what it is like out there for them outside of our program. Okay, so lastly, closure, and I'll go over this one just because it's pretty quick. So closure, we're talking about the end of the relationship. So program includes discussion, the closure process that focus on identity growth during the relationship, and program creates opportunities within mentoring relationships for LGBTQ youth to learn how to identify and recruit mentors and allies who can serve as positive in-person role models so that they can grow a larger group of support for their post-mentoring journey. So this first part is talking about, when we're talking about the end of the mentoring relationship, that there is a structured opportunity for the mentee to kind of take a beat and reflect back on their mentoring relationship and see how they themselves have grown. And how their identity has changed and grown, because likely and ideally, if the space was safe and it was a positive mentoring relationship, or even if not, they've changed and grown in some way. Because bottom line is children change and grow, but when we're talking about LGBTQ youth, they change and grow sometimes even faster. So we want to give them that time and opportunity to have that reflection, because often they're not given that time and opportunity to do so. So we want to give them that space, and the closure is a great time to take that space for them to do that. So that is an important part of that closure process. So it's not just a season potentially lost, which of course a mentor can be. No matter how nicely you can close, it's still a loss when a mentoring relationship ends, that it can be a positive reflection and look back as well. And then the second part, it's not just about when it ends, it's about an intention throughout the relationship, is that the program in relation with the mentor is creating opportunities, and the mentor as well is helping the mentee to create opportunities to identify additional supportive adults for this mentee. So at the point of closure, when this mentor has to go or whatever the situation is, there's other adults kind of standing by for when that relationship has to end. So that whether that is kind of network mapping or life planning, etc., that this mentee is not left hanging when this mentor this specific mentoring relationship has to end. And I think that has to be intentionally planned by the program and instilled into the mentor and to their activities that they spend time with their mentee throughout the duration of their time in the program. And whether that's at the end of that mentoring relationship, this mentee is transitioning to another program, another web of support. I think that can look a lot of ways. But again, the research says that LGBT youth come across less natural mentors over the course of their life. So again, that's going to require our intentional work to ensure that they have caring adult supports and that we are ensuring that we're catching them on the web and we're getting them there and that they are lined up and ready to be there for our young people should there be closure in a relationship. All right, any questions as we formally end the EEP section of our training? We got 10 minutes, we're crushing it. Okay, cool. So kind of what are we doing next? What's left in the supplement that we did not go over today is program design and management. So how to ensure your program is committed to inclusion and safety of the youth in your program. Program evaluation, so how to kind of audit your program and ensure that LGBTQ youth are welcome and safe there. So this is the kind of work that we're going to be doing in this next session. So this session is going to be June 28th. And this is a working session. So I'm barely going to be talking and I can't wait because I don't want to be talking the whole time. I want you guys to have the opportunity. This will be kind of like a group working session. We'll be in breakouts. I mean, you'll be welcome to bring your colleagues, but you'll be in groups so you can bounce ideas off each other. My colleagues will be there on hand to work with you as well. We'll kind of work through these areas of the supplements with some activities for you to reflect on, to discuss. To kind of see your kind of program design and management and do some little mini evaluations of different areas of your programs and for us to kind of discuss through some of those ideas. So it'll be a really active training, but I wanted to get through this part of the EEP today to kind of get your minds moving about what am I doing? Can we do these things? How hard would that be? What's actually actionable? And then for this working session for us to be like, how would that actually look in the context of my program? So that's what that session is going to look like. It's going to be a working session because typically these trainings, it's me at the end being like, go do it. And I wanted to not do that to you guys anymore and just send you off with a bunch of homework. I want to support you guys through that. So that's what that session is going to be. The link to register is in that PDF of links. Please register in advance so I can try to organize the breakout rooms. I look forward to seeing you there. And then this last thing I have here, there's a potential opportunity for this ally training for programs. So Mentor National is offering this opportunity for this LGBTQ ally training for mentoring programs to receive training to essentially ally your program with this supplement. Link is dropped. I'm going to apply and then interested programs, you will contact me and then we will go through this training together. I think it's about 4 sessions. So I believe it wouldn't start until July, but if you are interested, please reach out to me. I'm going to apply and hopefully that will all work out. I feel confident about us, but I think it would be very fruitful and that'll be like the super real hard work, but this working session will be the start of it. But I think that would be wonderful to bring to Maryland and DC. Dion, I'm seeing you. Yes. I think that that is us really taking a stance that this is important to us and here in Maryland and DC. So let's freaking do it. So that is upcoming, but I hope to see you all on the 28th for sure. So please keep in touch with me about that. And then I wanted to bring this up, and if you are interested in this being a training, please make a note in the survey that will pop up when you exit this training. But this is a resource linked in that PDF, Conversations about Masculinity, How Mentors Can Support Men of Color. I wanted to bring this up because when we're talking about gender and gender identity, we're not just talking about what's outside the binary, right? You know, men, women, we have gender identities, and it's something to talk about and acknowledge, and talking about it can help us divert from toxic masculinity and patriarchy, and when things become hurtful and, you know, ruin our country. Oh, I see you, Mary. That's great. Mary Beth, great. So this is a wonderful resource. It's in that document. But if you'd like to have a larger discussion or a roundtable or a workshop or something around this resource, please let me know in the survey that's going to pop up about what you would want that to look like. I'm not saying I would lead it because I don't think I'm the person to do that. Looking at you, Dayan. But if you're interested in exploring this resource deeper, somehow let us know how you would like that to look, because I do think it's pertinent to this larger topic about gender and our work with young people. So I wanted to bring that up and to this group because I think it's pertinent to the work and everyone here's interests and thoughts. Michael, the resources, the link to the registration is in there. It should say deep dive. Okay, and then I don't know if this is my last slide. I don't know. Anyway, our Maryland United for Youth Conference is in November, but our call for proposals is live. This link I don't think is in that link for the PDF of links, but it's June 27th. If you have something to share, a training that you do, a workshop that you have to share, a topic that you want to share with the field, we want to hear it. We want you to share it with the network. So this is a conference that we do in conjunction with our partner MOST, the Maryland Out of School Time Network. Our conference is going to be in Annapolis this year. We haven't done it in person since 2019. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, it can be about anything. If you click on, I click on that, but if you go to that bit.ly, it'll talk about the different tracks that we're doing, but it's all about kind of being re-engaged in the field and with each other. So there are a few different tracks that we're doing. If you have something to share, your area of expertise, your program's area of expertise, we want to hear it, and so is everybody else. So we hope that you may submit and present with us and talk about how awesome you are and contribute. We would love to see you there. Oh, and then lastly, our technical assistance that I referenced earlier. So this is another way in which we don't want you to do the work alone. And again, if you're thinking about doing this LGBTQ work deeper, this is a way to do that. This is our no-cost technical assistance. If you apply that bit.ly, but I'll also send out the link in our follow-up email, you can be matched with one of our expert consultants for up to 30 or 50 hours, depending on your request, on the needs of your program. So whether that is writing a mentor handbook or a mentor recruitment plan or a board recruitment plan or whatever, a training plan, etc. This could be your way to do it. And we are accepting these quickly, and we're bringing on actually some new consultants as well. So now is the time. We'd love to help with whatever it is you may need. So it is 12:27. I'm going to stop recording. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, and make sure you have all those links. Thank you for coming, everyone.